Creativity, the act of turning new and imaginative ideas into reality, and which involves two processes, thinking, then producing, is a great skill to have. But what do you do if you feel your creativity could be a lot stronger? How do you improve your creativity? Here to tell us more about what creativity has meant to him in his life and to talk about how to strengthen your creativity is Rob Keeley. Rob Keeley is a children's author, a dramatist, and a workshop leader. His life has encompassed everything from training as a lawyer to working in the voluntary sector, helping children with their reading and IT in schools, and most famously, writing award-winning books for children such as The Alien in the Garage and the Spirit series. Most recently, he's been children's writer in residence at the Stay at Home Literary Festival. So, hi Rob, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking your time to talk to me. First, I want to start with your grandparents. Did you have one or more grandparents who were creative? If yes, who were your creative grandparents and how did they show their creativity?
Yes, my grandparents did have their creative side, and I'm thinking in particular of my nan. That's my grandmother on my mother's side of the family. She had a wonderful imagination, and I spent a lot of time with her while I was growing up. And we used to play what we called pretending games, where we'd imagine ourselves into all sorts of fantastical situations. Or sometimes we'd reenact scenes from books or TV and then start to change the endings or the storylines or the characters. So that gave me a lot of practice for playing with characters and stories. I'm thinking also of my my dad's mum, who was a very talented musician and a child prodigy at the violin. My two grandfathers were more practical people, but Grandpa used to make props for the plays I wrote and acted in at school, and a few years back he wrote his war memoirs just for the family, which I edited for him. And Grandad, that's Dad's dad, was always very highly praised for his report writing. So there are lots of places the writing and storytelling genes could have come from.
How did your creativity manifest itself in your childhood?
I was always talking, always reading or writing or drawing, always doing something. I first went to a special school for disabled children, and I don't think they were quite ready for a child like me in those days. We were doing an English lesson one day, and the teacher said to me, "You're not writing, Robert." And I said, no, I can't write today. And the teacher said, "Why not?" And I said, "Well, because I'm a robot, and you've got to find the right button to make me work." Or I might be reading aloud to the teacher, and I'd say something, and she'd say, "That's not what it says on the page." And I'd say, "No, I'm saying the words that aren't on the page, the ones that we can't see." So I suppose I was always the storyteller. As I grew older, I wrote short plays, which we acted at the mainstream primary school I went on to. And then, when I was 15, I got my first professional writing commission, which was to write an article on life for the disabled at secondary school for a local magazine. And then, when I was in the sixth form, I worked as a volunteer classroom assistant on the community project, working with reception and year one mostly. And I used to listen to the children read, and then read them a story at the end of the day, still making bits up. I think it was then that I really decided that I wanted to be a children's author.
How did your parents support your creativity?
My parents were always hugely supportive. When I was little, my dad often used to help me bring books to life, like by turning my home lift into a stage, or into the great glass elevator where we had all the buttons mentioned in the Roald Dahl books. And when I was a bit older, we used to make home movies with my toys and action figures. And my mum always used to read to me and would read my stories too. And then in adulthood, they've still been there for me and have always supported me at my events and book signings. So I'm very lucky to have a creative and a supportive family.
Maybe you've had struggles in life. How did your creativity help you get through those?
There have been tough times in my life, often stemming from having a disability. I don't think society had particularly high expectations of disabled children in the 80s, and there were times at school when I was bullied. And then when I left university, I couldn't get a job in the profession I'd trained for, and when I did get a job, I was then made redundant 3 times in 4 years. So writing and creating imaginary worlds were my escape during all those difficult times. Thankfully, my last redundancy coincided with the publication of my first book, which was The Alien in the Garage, and also with my getting a place to study a creative writing MA at Lancaster University. So really, I was pushed into living the dream.
I know my next question is a little bit similar to my previous one, but have you ever been in a situation in which your creativity helped to improve your life? If yes, how did being creative help to improve your life? I mean, going from a good situation to an even better one.
Again, it helped me through the difficult times I mentioned, but even within those, being creative could sometimes help to alleviate the situation. Like when I was being bullied at school, I learned to talk back to the bullies and to bamboozle them with unexpected remarks or questions they hadn't thought of. And then when I was working in the voluntary sector, once they discovered there was a writer on the staff, it got me away from reception work, and I wrote minutes of meetings, funding bids, publicity materials for the charity, all kinds of things. But I think I was only really happy once I started working for myself and I was able to work on my own creative projects.
Why is it imperative to you to be creative?
Creativity lifts us out of ourselves. It makes new things possible. It enables us to go to places we wouldn't physically be able to go. It puts us in control of our lives, and in that sense it's of huge therapeutic value. But we need stories to help us make sense of the world. I think society has a fundamental need for stories, which goes back to ancient times when people would gather around the fire of an evening and listen to stories. And of course that's where we get our fairy tales and our folk tales from. As for children, that they need stories to help them make sense of the world, to teach them the difference between right and wrong, to teach them about teamwork and problem solving, and to build their literacy too, and above all to entertain them and to make them laugh. I feel I've got a key role to play in doing that, and I'm very proud to belong to the world of children's authors.
And my final question is, as promised, what are tips you can give to those who want to boost their own creativity?
I would say just take every opportunity you can to be creative. Try as many different art forms as you can and find one to suit you, because I think there's something for everyone. But I think art is fundamentally about communication and communicating your ideas, so your work has to be noticed. So just produce all you can and take every opportunity to submit your work. If you do that, you will be criticised in the positive as well as the negative sense of the word, but that doesn't matter. You can learn from that, learn from your mistakes, and it helps to make your work better in the end. And believe in yourself too. It's like I always say to my creative writing students, there is no writer's block, just a lack of confidence. So you need to believe in yourself and in your work. Otherwise, just relax, enjoy expressing yourself, and have fun.
Subscribe to my channel for more interviews. The next one comes in 5 weeks. If you want me to interview you, just send me an email to edvinpalmer@yahoo.com. Next week, I'll be back with a new video in my series on intellectual giftedness. Till then, I only want to say 3 things. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and bye for now.